Welcome to the It's All About Missions podcast with Brady Van Winkle, as we endeavor to talk about missions and the need for the gospel all around the world. We hope we can help you find your place in world evangelism. And for questions or for more information, please check out it'sallaboutmissions.com. And now we hope you enjoy the show. Hello, and thank you for joining us on this week's episode of It's All About Missions, Country of the Week, Country Spotlight, as we go to the Oceania region of the world, and we're looking at the country of New Zealand this week, and I hope you join us in praying for New Zealand this week. And there's a great need for the gospel there. New Zealand, let's tell you a little bit about it. Maybe you know a little bit about it, maybe know a lot about it. People know somewhat about New Zealand. Sometimes it's the news, sometimes they know about it because it's near Australia. It's absolutely beautiful. There's lots of beautiful photography taken there, films that have been done there, things along those lines. But the population of New Zealand is about 4 million people. There are two main languages there. You've got English and Maori. Maori is the tribal language that somewhat is still spoken and used there by the tribal people. The capital city is Wellington, but it's not the largest city. The largest city is actually Auckland, and Auckland has a population of about 1.5 million people, whereas Wellington has a population of about 500,000 people. There in New Zealand, there's a need for the gospel. There are lots of different religions there. There's lots of different versions of Christianity there. Most of them false from Roman Catholicism, Anglican. About 31% of people will claim themselves to be non-religious or atheistic or something along those lines. But you know what? What's sad about it is those people are lost and going to hell because whether they believe in nothing, that they have no religion, or they're following a works-based religion, there's very little Christian witness there. And we need to pray for the country of New Zealand to be reached with the gospel. And, we need to pray that God will raise up some more laborers to give their life to go and take the gospel to New Zealand. You know what we also need to pray for? We need to pray for those that are laboring, the New Zealand pastors that might be there, that God will give them boldness as they preach the gospel, but also that they'll be able to raise up laborers from their church that go all throughout New Zealand and following and surrounding islands to take the gospel. That we also need to be praying for New Zealand Christians to have boldness to share the gospel with their friends and co-workers. We need to pray for the New Zealand people that God will open their eyes, that God will make them realize they're lost and on their way to hell, and they would turn, they would be searching for something, and that they could come to the knowledge of Christ before it's eternally too late, because these people are lost and on their way to hell. And yes, it's a beautiful country, but you know what? A beautiful country can't save you. The only way to get to heaven is through Jesus Christ. Let's be praying that God will raise up an army of laborers that will give their lives to go and take the gospel to the people of New Zealand, that we can see New Zealand reach with the gospel in this generation. And let's make sure this week you'll be praying for New Zealand, that the gospel will go forward, that the gospel will be boldly proclaimed, that laborers will be raised up, that souls will be reached in the country of New Zealand. But again, we have been called to take the gospel to the whole world. And we should not only be praying for the gospel reach with the gospel in this generation, we should be endeavoring to do all that we can to help see the gospel reach the world reach the gospel in this generation. I apologize today, my words are all getting mixed up. But we need to be praying for that, because God gave us a command over 2,000 years ago to take the gospel to the whole world. It's our responsibility as Christians to go and take the gospel to the whole world. And I want to ask you, what are you doing? What part are you having in helping see the world reach the gospel? If you're a Christian, you should be at least be going to church. But you know what? You should be praying. You should be giving. You should be looking to go on mission trips. You should be asking God if it'd be your will that He would call you to missions, that you would give your lives to take the gospel around the world. And you'd endeavor in everything that you do by sharing the gospel, by discipling people, and wherever you are, that you're doing all that you can to help us see the world reach the gospel in this generation. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of It's All About Missions. And we'd like to ask you to do a couple things for us. The first thing I ask you to do, so if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe so you can stay up to date when all of our new episodes drop. And that way, as a new episode comes, you'll get a notification that lets you know, hey, we've got a new episode of It's All About Missions. Second thing I ask you to do, if you haven't yet, please make sure to leave us a review. These reviews are very vital, and they help us out, and they help other people to see us in the podcast player of choice. They'll see us and see those reviews and say, hey, I want to check out this podcast. And lastly, one other thing I'd like you to do, why don't you share us with a friend, a family member, somebody you know, and say, hey, why don't you go over and check out It's All About Missions? That'll help us grow our audience, help people to know more about It's All About Missions, and guess what? It'll help more people get involved in reaching the world with the gospel. I want to challenge you to know that the Bible, it's all about missions. And as a Christian, your life should be all about missions. And what are you going to do to impact the world with the gospel in this generation?